WTOL-TV, Toledo. Straight from the newsroom, this is Toledo 11 News.
Just another day on the job for a YMCA worker.
Until she came across this.
Were set up and students were painting welcome signs.
It wasn't quite the thrill of the open road, more like the parking lot of Perrysburg Commons.
It will make us fit you.
Just about the only event making news today.
2,000 carryout orders were handled.
Welcome into another edition of WTOL 11's Vault with me, Dan Cummins. This week we're heading back to the 90s. Jungle Fever hit theaters, Paula Abdul ruled the radio, and gas was just over $1. We're rolling back the clock to the first week of June 1991. 'We start on June 1st, 1991. It was a day featuring an emotional homecoming for members of the All-American 350th. After serving overseas, these nurses and soldiers were finally home, and they were welcomed back with cheers, hugs, and heartfelt thanks. Some told WTOL 11's Evan Rosen they didn't need the ceremony, just being home was more than enough.
Last January, busloads of the 350th Medical Evacuation Unit roll out for war, the troops facing an uncertain future. Five months later, the buses roll in, carrying 55 nurses, medics, and doctors, all safe and healthy. Sergeant James Brady was expecting his UT buddies to welcome him, but nothing like this.
It's awesome. I don't know what to say. It's just, there's no words to describe it.
There are lots of words to describe what it's like to hug your spouse or child after a war. Words like,
I never want to do this ever again.
And I agree. We've been through a war together.
Inside the official Army welcome home ceremony, some of these nurses and others say they prefer to skip the pomp and circumstance, but hey, they're still under orders.
The All-American 350th, welcome home. Let's hear it for
MC Daniel Halou, known as Mr. Entertainer, was once Mr. Soldier. Halou says his return from Vietnam was different. He says he wishes his welcome was like this.
There's a lot of love, there's excitement, there's enthusiasm. It's the way an American hero's welcome ought to be.
Many of these nurses, doctors, and medics have made major financial sacrifices as well as emotional ones. Now that they've served America, they can get on with serving their families. Evan Rosen, Toledo 11 News.
It was race day that same day in 1991. We're talking real horsepower, literally. Kids at Raceway Park got a hands-on lesson in harness racing, and while they might not be ready to saddle up just yet, they and Dick Berry gained a whole new respect for the hard work behind the scenes.
And they're off, sort of. 60 youngsters ride sulkies to feel what it's like to be a jockey. They've come to Raceway Park for a day-long camp sponsored by the Harness Horse Youth Foundation.
Teach them a little bit about the horses, the differences between a trotter and a pacer.
Pacers, their legs on the same side move simultaneously, and trotters, they move opposite each other.
Show them how the wagers are made, how it works, how the odds board is controlled.
You gonna come out here and bet on some horses?
No.
How come?
I don't think I'm old enough.
The kids also take barn tours, meet with drivers and trainers, and learn about grooming and feeding.
Kids growing up learn about football, baseball, basketball, but they're not exposed to horse racing.
It's a lot of money to take care of these horses. I thought it would be like easy, and it's not. These people out here do a lot of work. I was surprised.
Raceway Park wants people of all ages to learn more about harness racing. The first Saturday of every month, a fan forum is held. It's free, and yes, you can hop on board a sulky for a ride. Dick Berry, Toledo 11 News.
We're throwing the wtol-vault in reverse. Chrome, curves, and cruisers, plus a voice from Toledo radio history that you might recognize. June 1st, 1991 was the day when the engines purred, records spun, and nostalgia filled the air. Dick Berry takes us there.
Hey, from the corner of Ballard Boulevard in Dream Street. Yes, indeed, Bob Kelly here from X94.5 from the big stack of black shellac with another one of our flat little friends with the holes in the middle from twixt and tween the turning table. So stick and stay and don't go away. There's more in story in the drawer. As ladies and gentlemen, it's the little old lady from Pasadena.
It's the little old lady from Pasadena.
When you were younger, you knew the cars, but you really weren't settled enough and old enough to remember them. Now you're old enough, you're settled, and now you can afford to do it.
Afford is the word for these oldies but goodies. Jim Davila spent the last 13 years at around $20,000 restoring what he calls the Great American Sports Car, a 63 Vet.
There's reproduction companies that make parts for them. You go to swap meets, look for parts, and you just take your time at looking when you know what you want to buy. And
John Hubka restored one of the 3,339 Ford Mustangs made in 1968. It's now worth $10,000, a worthwhile investment.
The pre-70 Mustang is becoming rarer and rarer because what was available has either been completely scrapped out for salvage parts to rebuild the few that are left.
But investment aside, the owner of this 1940 Ford four-door sedan likes to show off his wheels out on the road. He drives it to work.
It's a pretty positive reaction. You get a lot of stares, and the biggest thing you got to watch is people looking too close and coming toward you. So.
Street rods, a blast from the past, a past these folks want to see last.
From classic to convenient, we're shifting gears to the everyday driver. The Honda Accord topped sales in June 3rd, 1991. 2.2-liter, 16-valve, four-cylinder engine produced 140 horsepower. And it topped out at 119 miles an hour. That speed, that's the problem. So some drivers decided to pick up radar detectors. Remember those? I had one. Ohio State Highway Patrol remembers them too. And troopers showed Janice Lane how they still stop speeders.
Granted, most of us have been a little short on time and pretended not to see this. Though we may slide by for a while, it's just a matter of time before the law catches up to you. Yes, even drivers with radar detectors.
6-0 on a blue car. Be the third one to your bridge in the driving lane.
There's a toggle switch in our radar that we have turned off. The radar is on, but the beam's off. And when we see someone speeding, we'll turn the toggle switch on, and it'll catch them immediately. It'll clock to speed immediately. And by the time they realize it, then it's too late.
If you're planning a road trip, be careful to avoid getting pulled over out of state. A law called the Violator Compact is a way of sharing information between states. All except for Michigan, Oregon, Washington State, and Idaho are part of the pact. It could mean double trouble if you're speeding. The cost of your ticket doubles after 90 days, and then...
If they failed to mail the money in, they would revoke or suspend their license, and what they would have to do, there's a reinstatement fee. They would have to pay a fee and fill out some paperwork with Bureau of Motor Vehicles, plus pay the ticket in the state where they were cited.
Rest assured, someone's smiling at your expense. Municipalities are raving about the revenues collected through enforcement of the Violator Compact.
If you take the cost of a radar detector, figure in the amount of expense for a speeding ticket, not to mention higher insurance costs, sounds like it's a lot cheaper just to slow down and drive the speed limit. Janice Lane, Toledo 11 News.
The alarms rang out June 4th, 1991. Sounded real, but thankfully it wasn't. A simulated nuclear emergency, a high-stakes drill to put safety first. Mike Cosner takes us behind the scenes.
Reactor trip, tripping the reactor, tripping the turbine.
Tom, check for instrument air available.
We have ICS power available. I have 1,000 pounds from both generators, Paul. We're looking very good there.
A reactor trip.
It means some type of malfunction inside the Davis-Besse nuclear power plant is causing a rapid shutdown of the reactor system, the main component of any nuclear power facility. In the next 5 minutes, it will be the job of these operators to safely stabilize the plant.
Paul, do we have one makeup pump operating?
We have number 2 makeup pump operating.
What you're watching is a training exercise in Davis-Besse's new $12.5 million full-scale control room simulator.
This gets the operators ready for a wide range of emergency conditions that could happen, but probably never will in their entire career.
22.
All control rods are in service. Tom, check for the turbine trap.
Turbine has trapped.
The instructor can introduce emergencies and malfunctions on just about any piece of equipment in the plant. From a room overlooking the simulator, the instructor can monitor the operator's response to any situation.
Everything from the buttons and switches to the carpeting, even the background noises here in the simulator are exactly the same as they are in the actual control room.
The intent is to actually make them truly feel like this is the control room.
Because many emergency situations can never be practiced in the actual control room, the simulator is essential to continuing education of these reactor operators.
The plant is in a safe, stable condition.
Mike Cosner, Toledo 11 News.
We're turning our attention to Toledo's port side and a dream and idea to bring hands-on science and discovery downtown. Plans are starting to take shape for a new science center modeled after COSI in Columbus. But before the hot air balloons and high-wire bike we've come to know from the Imagination Station, there had to be a vision. Julie Malkin takes us there in June 5th, 1991.
Imagine a pendulum or hot air balloon moving through the now empty portside atrium. Ohio's Center of Science and Industry is more optimistic than ever that will happen. As the Toledo Vision Advocacy Group today considered ideas to improve Toledo's future, COSI says it's more than enough to boost downtown.
Museum's a good idea, COSI is a good idea, but that doesn't have the major draw capability. I think that would draw more things down.
Yes, we are a destination in downtown Columbus. We draw very well from our suburban areas surrounding us. We actually draw from all over the state.
Early projections say 250,000 visitors could experience COSI Toledo the first year. If the Columbus trends hold true, almost 20% of them would spend the night here and spend at least $30 per family outside of the museum. COSI officials are so optimistic about Toledo, Graber spends part of each week here.
COSI is just very serious about this project, and we felt to really start moving the project forward in terms of the planning, it was important for someone to be here on a regular basis.
There are already blueprints for transforming Portside into a museum. Most of the interior walls would go, but 12,000 feet of restaurant space would remain.
Our indications in Columbus are that that's an important service to provide to visitors for families during the day.
COSI is putting the finishing touches on its Toledo business plan. But as for the cost, neither the city nor COSI has any solid figures. By fall, we should know if the whole project is a go.
Of course, we know that site is now the Imagination Station, and along with the Science Center, there's a full-fledged IMAX movie screen right next to Toledo's Promenade Park. We're going to take a quick break here on The Vault. In just 30 seconds, we'll introduce you to a young man who did some big things for his community. Welcome back into The Vault here on WTOL 11+. The 90s brought plenty of classics like the eco-friendly hero, Captain Planet. It took heart to bring him to life, and this next story is all about a young man with a heart of gold and a vision of going green. Dick Berry introduced him to the world on June 5th, 1991.
This is the story of a good kid, 6-year-old William Tepe of Whittier School. Among other things, William helped set up a recycling program at his school to raise money for games, as well as help the environment.
You wouldn't have to cut down any more trees for paper and stuff.
And he makes sure his classmates, as well as the class guinea pig Squeaker, are taken care of.
He's just such a caring boy. He shares, he brings in extra things all the time when we do any kind of project.
Everyone who knows William agrees on one thing. He's not a self-centered kid. An example of that is last Christmas when he found out that one of his classmates might not get a Christmas tree.
Because he helped me a lot of times when I needed something.
How so?
Like when I had when I didn't know how to make a number, he would show me.
William's teacher, and William himself, say his values come from parents Richard and Sherry Tepe.
We worked a lot with him, like spent a lot of special time with him. Time, you know, if you really treat people real well, they should treat you back well. And I told him, you know, treat people like you'd want them treated. And
William will spend the summer months recycling and playing football. Oh, and by the way, William never had to buy his buddy that Christmas tree. But as this award winner has learned, it's the thought that counts.
All right, you ever get in your car only to start it up and be greeted by that check engine light? Frustrating. It can be expensive too. But on June 6, 1991, an innovative class sought to teach people how to check that engine themselves. And Julie Malkin showed us that knowledge might mean you won't get taken advantage of by the mechanic.
When you hear a grinding sound, usually what your problem is, you've got metal-to-metal contact here.
This is probably as close as most women have ever come to their car's brake system. It's not something these would-be mechanics know too well.
I know it's a car, and I know you have to put gas in it and oil and that sort of thing. Other than that, I really don't know much about it.
Monroe Auto Equipment and a Toledo car shop are teaching women what makes their car tick.
About 55% of the new cars that were sold were bought by women. And what we're trying to do is educate them on preventative maintenance.
Dale Montgomery usually teaches male mechanics how to better do their job. This class might not be able to break down a catalytic converter, but by the end of this seminar, they should be able to keep their cars in shape.
When they hear a noise, they should know what's causing the noise so they don't run right to the garage. They fix my car.
If I have an all-male group, ego gets involved, and they won't ask questions. But women are eager to learn.
And this group is very eager, with a good motivation, saving money at the shop.
What I can check on my own to save some money, things like the air filter or whatever, the carburetor, I don't know, that sort of thing.
So look out, any car mechanic that might think about padding the bill. These women know what you're doing, and they're watching. Julie Malkin, Toledo 11 News.
From cars to buses, Toledo's Greyhound station has served as a hub for travelers for decades. This next story goes back to June 9th, 1991, and hard-working people are inside that Greyhound station getting people where they need to go. Melissa Veitch met a man who spent 60 years doing just that.
Bowling Green bus station, Avery speaking.
91-year-old Gilbert Avery has been wearing this old Greyhound uniform for the past 60 years. He started as a bus driver and now runs the ticket counter. But even after all his time on the job, he shows few signs of slowing down.
After you retire, you ask somebody for a job, tell them you're retired, but they think you're an old man.
Avery says he ran into such a problem back in 1966 when he retired from driving. He got bored. And since no one would hire him, he bought the Bowling Green bus station and became his own boss. Since then, his days have been filled selling tickets and talking to friends.
All my friends come here to see me, where if I was sitting at home, they probably wouldn't come. This way I see somebody every day.
Ralph Brandeberry stops by the station every Friday morning while his wife gets her hair done.
He helps people here occasionally. Somebody gets caught short on a ticket, he's liable to give them a ticket. Seriously.
Findlay, Lima, Dayton, Cincinnati bus.
Avery says the schedule fits him just fine. In fact, he's rarely missed a day over the years. This fall, he'll celebrate his 92nd birthday. Does this mean he'll finally retire? Certainly not. He says that wouldn't be good for his health.
Just keep working. Whether you feel good or not, keep going. If you give up, then that's when you die.
Melissa Veitch, Toledo 11 News, Bowling Green.
We're rolling on full steam ahead to June 8th, 1991. It's a time when friends and fellow travelers from across the country made their way to Toledo to honor a man who kept the hoboing tradition alive. Maury Graham, better known as Steam Train, or Toledo's own king of the hobos. Dick Berry took us on a journey to get to him and his lifestyle a little better.
1,000 miles away from home, sleeping in the rain.
They've come from as far away as California to celebrate the birthday of a man they respect.
Slam that box door.
Steam Train Maury Graham, Toledo's own king of the hobos. Old Steam Train is also recovering from a recent stroke.
Just a really nice, responsive people who just love him and recognize him as the glue that still holds this hoboing tradition together.
I appreciate it, but I hope, you know, I don't like to see them spending the money to come and losing wages to come.
We ask heaven to bless earth for our goodness.
A hobo is not a tramp, not a bum, not homeless.
We just honor the wind by blowing smoke to them.
A hobo is an honorable migratory worker who just happens to like to ride the rails, ride trains from job to job.
No, I'm not going to add any more wood. I just kind of worried it's hanging off there to the side.
Hoboing is a free life, but a hard life, and the only kind of life for the ink man. He also collects tattoos.
I've worked carnival. I've done farm work, ranch work, picked apples. You know, just a little bit of anything I could get to get by.
Midwest John strums his guitar from town to town, looking for a job.
I don't want to get into that. I don't like the system. I don't want to fight and pay bills and all that, and I like being free. I like doing what I want to do when I want to do it.
The editor of the Hobo Times has written a 2-line poem called A Hobo's Philosophy. It goes, hit the tracks, don't look back.
We end this week in 1991 on June 9th. In this next story, steps up to the plate to show off a few baseball legends reliving one unforgettable moment in sports history. A reminder how a single swing, a lucky bounce, even a stumble into the stands can cement a place in baseball lore. Al Smith takes us back with this nostalgic nod to America's pastime and the players who still feel the magic decades later.
I hit it real well, and I saw it take off. If he hadn't let me hit that ball, we both would have been forgotten about long ago.
Bobby and I have discussed this often. No way that we thought that this thing would live 40 years and probably for the rest of my life anyhow, and the rest of Bobby's.
Well, it did last, and the two former rivals have teamed up on the collectibles circuits.
It's a good thing for the younger generation to really see that Bobby and I are really true life individuals, alive, and that he and I did partake of a piece of baseball history.
Baseball fans line up by the dozens to get autographs from the two men responsible for what's become legend in baseball history. Even after 40 years, the excitement and disbelief still lives on.
We're the lucky ones. I happened to close my eyes and hit one of the seats, and of course, complete surprise to me and all of us and all the Giant fans.
And so I, accept that people want to ask me about it. I mean, it's why I'm infamous.
Branca and Thompson have made names for themselves as baseball's famous and infamous dynamic duo. They've also cashed in on their notoriety by giving charitable groups baseball pictures and posters.
I sign them, and people write back and thank me and tell them, hey, we raised X number of dollars. So, it's a good feeling to be able to help out a little bit.
Good or bad, one moment in 1951 has lasted a lifetime, and to the delight of Bobby Thompson and Ralph Branca, the shot heard around the world echoes in the ears of baseball fans everywhere. Al Smith, Toledo 11 News.
And that wraps up our look back at the week that was early June 1991, a time when Toledo celebrated hometown heroes, dreamed up a new science center, and tuned into Bob Kelly spinning the oldies beside classic cars. From powerful moments to feel-good stories, a week full of heart, history, and hometown pride. Thanks for joining us on this trip down memory lane. We'll see you next time inside the wtol-vault. We leave you with a group of sailors paddling toward the Mills race on Lake Erie.
Harry, spinnaker blocks.
You start in Toledo and you end in a different location in Put in Bay. Usually races you start and end in the same location.
No way, Harry. If these little strands right here break, the whole thing will suck right off of each other.
Safety is pretty important. That's a pretty good, another big consideration. If that thing breaks, it kind of has a recoil effect. It's like a big spring. It can fly back and hit you. Smack you pretty good.
I would say for the guy, wouldn't you? Is there more strain on that? With the pole? I think so.
Yeah. Put the good line for the guy.
I'd use the good lines for the guys. Yeah.
You really don't know how you did unless you finish after it gets light, or you get to the dock and you see who's in the dock before you. Is about the only way you know how you did.
Drop down, then we can drop down, and we've got our runs all set.
So it's it's a pretty good undertaking. You know, you go quite a ways over the lake, and any type of weather can happen, especially this time of year.
I don't know what time the first start is, but we go at 6:30, so we got time.
We leave here by 4, we're okay. It's 15 minutes, Bryce.
Eager to do it next year. Wanting to come back and do it again.